Hi there, my name is Asif Rahman and I work as a doctor at a London accident and emergency department. In the department we see children and adults who come in with a variety of problems. One thing we do see is a lot of injuries resulting from fights, stabbings and the occasional shootings. The population that we see vary from young children to adults, but especially in the teenage age group we see quite a lot of these injuries which are related to some form of violence or fight. When the patient comes into A&E, they may be in a room like this, but often it's very noisy and there's lots of people running around. They may need some unpleasant procedures ranging from a small needle in their arm so they can have some bloods taken and we can give them painkillers, to having a tube put into their chest to help them breathe. Some of our sickest patients often will need to be put to sleep and will need to go to surgery, again, which can be quite a nerve-wracking experience. Often after surgery, people will need to be in hospital for a few days to recover and recuperate, and often that too is not a nice experience because they're in an environment that they're not used to. In the very sickest of our patients, they may need to stay in hospital for some time, and often after having surgery, they may need plaster cast, they may have scars. After getting home, some of our patients not only have some physical problems, but a lot of them will often have psychological problems. This may come in the form of flashbacks. They often might have to relive the event. They may not be sleep well, and they may have lots of problems about going out, and this may have an effect on them going back to school or going to see friends and going to see family. As well as family members being affected, often patients' schools and friends are often affected. We've had some children who have come in and they've had something not very nice happen to them. Their friends have heard, and this has had a huge effect on them. So it doesn't just affect the patient and their family, but it affects a wider group of people, including the communities that they live in. On a final note, most of our young people, after these injuries, do get home, and the whole experience is more of an eye-opener. A few of our patients do get home as well, but have long-term problems, both physical and psychological. But unfortunately, for a small group of our patients, they never get the chance to go home.
My name is Junior Smart. I run the SOS Gangs project at St Giles Trust. It's a complete ex-offender-led project. We provide support, training, advocacy to those that are caught up in negative cycles of behaviour. When I left school, I didn't have any GCSEs. I remember a teacher telling me that I was going to fail, and I was going to fail rather dramatically and graciously, and for some strange reason after that I just gave up trying. So the thing about road life is that it's kind of sticky, you know. Often you can fall out with people and it ain't even nothing to do with you. Often you can have beef with people and it ain't even really your beef. The maddest thing about it is that I honestly thought I could dabble in that kind of world because there was elements about it that I liked. The fast cars, the women, having people around me, having, you know, a laugh and a joke and a drink with peers that thought that I was really cool and I was part of their clique. The problem was with that is that just by being around them I became associated with things that were negative, and it wasn't. I honestly thought at the time, well, actually I can do a little bit here, I can do a little bit there, and it will never get too much. But the problem with that kind of lifestyle is it just escalates, and I found myself, like, the situations were getting increasingly more heavy, they were getting more sticky, and ultimately that just led to me carrying out numerous offences. The thing was, it wasn't ever, when I think back on it, it wasn't ever the first time I did something that I got arrested. It wasn't the second time, it wasn't even the third time. I think it might have been the 10th time. But when I got caught, it was like it was like I'd been charged for every single bad thing that I did. And, you know, you can act as hard as you want. You can put on that bravado. You can have your screw face up or whatever. But when the judge told me, like, I'm sending you down for 12 years, like, literally, that was the moment that my world kind of like fell apart. Being sent down and being arrested and being taken to court and being charged had a profound effect on my sisters. They didn't know what I was doing. They knew that I had a group of friends and whatever, but they never knew the extent. The police came to the house. It was very public in front of, you know, we lived on a road, you know, when there were loads of other people living, and they came through the house and they possibly saw her as a co-D or co-defendant. You know, they would have turned the house over. There's nothing that can explain to you what prison's actually like. It's nothing like what your peers are probably telling you. It's nothing like what you're probably reading in the newspapers, that it's a hotel, it's a holiday camp. It's absolutely nothing like that, because the prison cell is cold, hard, dank. It's like a jungle when you're in prison. Like, you don't know what's going to come around the corner. Everybody's got a screw face up. Everyone's got something to prove. Everyone's looking for a weakness. I'm not even going to lie to you. I've seen grown men cry in front of me, like big grown men, guys that on road, you know, you'd think that they were a gangster or they'd be they'd be G'd up, they'd be walking with big swagger. Like, I've seen grown men cry in front of me. There were three things that made me change. The first night that I was in custody, I kept asking people, you know, the police officer and whatever, was there any support for someone like me? Just to put it in context, I'd been arrested at 4 o'clock in the morning and I hadn't been interviewed until 7 o'clock at night. And all of that time I had no one to talk to, I had no support, I had no advice, and I couldn't believe that's exactly what happens. And when I spoke to the prison officer, he was sort of saying to me, well, you know, where you're going, they've got this Samaritans, they've got the listener scheme, you know, you can talk to them all day long. The second thing that really motivated me and changed me was not just seeing the impact on my family, but seeing the same young people come back into prison again and again. And thirdly, I suppose, the thing that had the real impact on me is I was in a cell, and because there's nothing to do, I thought, you know what, I've never really read a book. Let me read a book from start to finish. And I read this book by Gandhi, and he said, like, when all hope is lost, when everything is taken away, like, be the change that you want to see in the world. And that, I suppose, really was the kickstart for me. You know, the craziest thing about it is that, you know, of all the young people we work with, I've never come across one young person who hasn't got real skills or real abilities, real talents. But the reality is there's no shortcuts. Like, you reap exactly what you sow, and it is about, like, giving yourself every single opportunity you can in order to succeed and achieve in what you want. And I can absolutely guarantee you, from being on one side of the fence, of being a person who used to try to actually delivering on my project, and I just simply, all I had to say to myself was, like, I'm going to give this project everything I have, and the project has reaped rewards. And in all the years that I was running around on the street trying to build a name and build some sort of self-image and reputation, in the 7 years that I've been running the project, I've achieved far more by just helping others, by just applying my skills, by just sort of saying to myself, you know what, I'm going to give this thing 100%, than I ever did when I was on road. And so really, you've got to start looking after yourself, looking after, you know, watch your own back, and really think about what it is that you want to get from life, and go for it. But there's, like I said, there's no shortcuts, there's no easy ways out. It's just literally hard work and putting your head to it.
I'm an ordinary mum, living an ordinary life. Until my life changed totally one Mother's Day. I finally lost my son. And I say finally because he had already been in the court system. He had got involved with some people who asked him to hold some drugs for them. They promised him a large amount of money. And he felt it'd be good to do this, I suppose. He was raised in a single parent family and he didn't want to keep asking me for the things that he needed, you know, trainers, tracksuits, jeans. So he thought he'd make a little bit of quick money himself. So he took the drugs from these people. And to my knowledge, it was held over a weekend. He was then asked to bring a portion of it back to them. A minicab was sent to pick him up. And the minicab was followed by the police, who stopped the car, found him with Class A drugs, then came and raided my home. And they found a large stash of crack cocaine and heroin in his underwear drawer in the bedroom. This is the first time I've ever seen these types of drugs anyway. I'm a person, I'm just totally against drugs. This led him into the police station. He was released on bail to return back 3 months later, where they would decide what would happen. 2 days before that date, my home was raided again. And outside of my home, in a box that has nothing to actually do with me, they found 3 guns and some more drugs. I took this to be like some sort of warning, because he wouldn't tell me the people that he was involved with. And I believe maybe out of fear, he ended up in jail anyway. The charges for the guns was dropped, but he was going to serve time for the drugs that was found earlier that year. And he done his time and was released from prison. And 3 months later he was dead. But then that knock came at the door in the early hours of the morning to say that he had been found. I didn't know what that meant. I thought it would be, well, he's been arrested, hasn't he? Until they said the words murdered. He was found face down in the river, wrapped around a tree. He'd been stabbed multiple times, he'd been shot, he was beaten up. And I know what murdered means, but it didn't connect to me. And as far as I was concerned, they had the wrong child. You know, there are two roads, 2 paths in life. And even when you meet at a crossroad, again, there is still always 2 paths. There's a right and a wrong. I don't want another mother to feel like I do. In the end, it really is your life, so you choose.